Kevin Wynn, thank you so much for joining me here on Disturbing the Priest. How are you doing, man?
I'm very good, mate. Very good. Yeah.
Nice. I'm excited to talk about Tysondog, amazing new wave of British heavy metal band. You guys have you know, I guess I could call it a new record. Midnight did come out a few years ago. 2022 feels like it was yesterday. Um, so it's been a few years since the album's release. How do you feel it's like held up over time?
But unfortunately, it came out. We were hit by a pandemic, and we get a chum. Clutch Carruthers passed away. He left the band, and he unfortunately died. Um, we got in a replacement vocalist, and that's still working out great. But we've done a few gigs. But we've not really been able to tour as much as we would like doing that. So it's we're working on the next record already now. So hopefully that should be out within the next sort of 6 months.
That's awesome. How long has the new record been in the works? Since midnight?
Since I was yeah, some of the tunes that didn't make it onto that one, basically. So
How
and
many songs did you have left over?
we've written, yeah, probably about five or six.
Five or
So
six.
um,
That's like
we've
half
got
a record.
yeah. So some of them. Oh yeah. Oh, we must have about 30 songs ready to be recorded. So we'll pick. No one wants to hear 30 songs these days, do they? Everyone wants to. An album length now is best
I feel
nine
like the
ten
one
songs.
LP length is key. Eh, Regardless of any whatever
Yeah.
band it is, you know. I feel like just the one
Yeah.
LP is
Exactly.
great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to
Oh,
be Iron
I
Maiden
agree.
and put out
Agree.
four, you know.
12-minute songs.
Yeah.
Always 12 minutes. We're, we're not that good. We're not that good anyway, but
The band's never been that, super proggy, but that'd be interesting
no,
to see.
no,
Y-
we leave that sort of shit to Satan. Satan are good at that. They were always growing up as kids. Satan were always the technically inferior. We were technically inferior band. Satan were amazing musicians and still are. We're still very close with them. Mind, I would put us just ahead of Venom. I think I think we knew a couple more chords than Venom, but yeah, no, our songs they're just good old heavy metal, heavy rock tunes. As you can probably tell, we are massive fans of that sort of Black Sabbath, Judas Priest era. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it
for
is
sure.
what it is, really. So yeah, I mean, we have got one song which I don't know if it'll make it on the album. If it does, it'll be great and it'll raise people's eyebrows because it's quite pendulum, prodigy, but heavy metal. A few sort of click tracks in it. You know what I mean? A few effects
Interesting.
in it, and I hope I can't mention the name of the title because at the minute the working title is a bit so. But we've got some great songs just ready to go. But in the meantime, I'm also getting put under pressure of Jeff of and Jeff Dunn because he produced a number of songs that have been recorded over the last 10, 12 years with the original vocalist on live songs. So it's not going to be a live album like from start to finish, just one concert. It's a collection of about 10, 11 songs that have been recorded all over the place with a lot of the original type members. So, for example, we'll have Rob Walker on drums, who was on Crimes of Insanity.
Right.
And then Phil Brewis, ex-Blitzkrieg drummer, he's on a few. We've got Alan Hunt now, original guitar player, on a couple of songs. Yeah, so we've got a new record on the way out. We've got the live record should be
Exciting.
due out definitely this year, and that's coming out on Demolition Records. Demolition have a long history of working with bands like Twisted Sister, Wasp, Hanoi Rocks, a band called Therapy, UK. I don't know if you're familiar with Therapy. So, and
band.
Avenger are putting their new album out. They're putting an album out through Demolition. So,
really?
Yeah, we're still signed to. Yeah, we're still signed to the band, to the Little in Denmark. That midnight come out, called From the Vaults, which is an offshoot of the label that Blitzkrieg, Tigers of Pantang are on.
Awesome.
So we're under contract with them for doing new album, one more new album with them. So
cool. Well,
so at the moment, we've got a live album coming out on Demolition Records. So yeah, we've at the moment we've got gigs lined up in Holland, Heavy Metal Maniacs, with some of our good friends, Raven, and Blitzkrieg, of course.
Great.
And then moving to Portugal, and we've just had an invite to go to Colombia. Which,
are you gonna do it?
I think so. I spoke to Alan's our singer, Brian's son, out of Blitzkrieg, and they've been out to Colombia with this promotions with this company.
Yeah.
And apparently they're quite a professional company. So the fact we're doing all the cities where they've had cartels like Cali, Medellin,
yeah,
Bogota.
I don't want Tysondog to go to the cartel. So be safe.
I'm not sure if that's where the money's coming from. Like, I know one thing. I will be checking my luggage on the way out.
Yeah.
We had a very close encounter in Sao Paulo one time, because unfortunately, the singer that we had who passed away, he did have a habit. Clutch had a bit of a habit, and occasionally he'd secrete product on his person. Let's say, so, if you can understand where I'm coming from.
Very in character.
Yes, so he was hiding certain products in or on his body, and we got pulled at Sao Paulo airport. Me and him, we ended up getting searched, and I looked at him. I says, "Please, pray tell me you don't have anything on you at all." Unfortunately, he didn't. So,
oh my!
If we go to Colombia, I'm going to make sure that. But
full body search, everybody.
Honestly, we are probably the most calamitous band that's out there. Honestly, we had Tony Bray come on the road with us, Venom's drummer, as road manager one time, and he said about all the tours he'd been right around the world with Venom, he'd never missed a plane, he'd never had problems with airport security. He comes on the road with us once, and everything like that happened. We nearly got shot at in Athens by Russian mafia. We got thrown out of a hotel. And then we turned up at Athens airport to fly back to England, and we missed the flight.
Oh
So
my God.
if, if ever you speak to Abaddon, just say, I, I understand you've been part of Tysondog's absolute
Yeah.
balls up.
Regards from Tysondog. Yeah.
We are odd, but it's unbelievable,
So
man.
what do you mean you almost got shot at? Like walk me through
We
that.
we we obviously we'd missed the flight, and the promoter then had to take us back to the hotel, and the hotel was like, no, you can't come back in. So the bus with all the equipment and the crew was parked the wrong way down a one-way street, and this big black Mercedes come the other way, and the guy started
Oh no.
on the horn. So our promoter, a guy called Zigas, he gets out the car and approaches the guy, and the guy just opens his shirt and and gets a hand on a gun and was like,
Holy shit.
it was like basically move the van, otherwise I'm going to start shooting. So this Zigas is also he was an undercover policeman. So he comes back to the van and says, listen, guys, we have a bit of a problem, but don't worry, I'll sort it out. Goes into his coat, brings out his police pass, goes over to the guy. I've never seen a guy move so quick in my life. He got in the car, even though we were facing the wrong way, and he just reversed out of this one-way street in a hood. Honestly, it was just...
I'm glad you guys, made it to tell the tale. And that'd be a crazy way for a band to go. They parked wrong. That's
and the Russian mafia
yeah.
shot us. So, but
Yeah. Now
yeah,
we're kind of, you brought up Clutch and these crazy stories and just kind of remembering his legacy. Like off the
yeah.
top of your head, what are like one of maybe like the crazy things he's done? I know there's a lot, but are there any
Oh,
stories that stand out to you?
the 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 best one I know. Well, so we were supposed to come to America with Venom and be on a tour with Venom and Metallica, but we couldn't
When
get.
was this?
This was back in the '80s, early '80s, because our manager Eric Cook was Venom's manager as well. So we shared management, but we couldn't get in because, unbeknown to us, at the Clutch had a criminal record. Our singer had been to jail, and for stupid things like someone got on the wrong side of him, so he broke into the house and spray painted in 4-foot letters across Clutch, across that wall. He fell out with a previous band. A bass player got on the wrong side of him, and so he got a drill and drilled holes in the guy's bass. He was in a band where he used to have a coffin on stage and he used to lie in the coffin before the gig. But he used to be in the coffin for about 1 hour before the gig. He just used to lie in the coffin and then come out. But he just he
That
was
feels like
such
something on a Spinal Tap.
oh, exactly. But he was such a... But again, when we played with Anvil in Sao Paulo, we were looking round for him. We were saying, "Where's the singer?" And as I say, he did have problems with drink and drugs, Clutch, and we couldn't find him anywhere. And eventually, we found him, and he was out of it. Because people had been buying him drink all day, he'd been smoking whatever, and we literally had to put him in the shower in the dressing room and try and sober him up before he went on stage and that. But he was such a character. When he come for the audition, in the band, he had a long leather coat on, and in one he had a bottle of whiskey, and in his other he had a bottle of vodka. And we were like, "This guy needs to be in the band." But you seen him, and he was quite a rugged, rough type guy, but like not a big fight. He didn't have a fighty guy, but he just loved like heavy metal. He loved music. He loved singing, and he was such a good laugh. Really good guy. Really miss him a lot. So
Yeah. He
but
felt like the embodiment of the genre
oh
almost. Just
yeah,
that rugged, like
never
such legendary.
never took us. I mean, you see some of the stuff that the management had us dressing up, and it was late 80s, and Ozzy Osbourne was doing it, Saxon were doing it, and it was a bit of the American influence. And this looks quite good. These guys kick ass, and fair enough. They look a bit girly and all that, but if Ozzy's doing it, and even Lemmy start wearing sort of spangled tops and things like that, and but Clutch just, me and Paul took to it quite well. And that's around about the Schools Out era when we'd done a cover of Alice Cooper's Schools Out, and it was getting radio play, and we had stylists and hairdressers, and it was like, oh, this is good. We think we might have made it here. We're getting played on Radio 1 and, and BBC. And it was, wow, this is great. But Clutch just didn't take to it. No matter how he looked, he just looked like a tramp. or, or a hobo, as you might say. Just,
I can see that. I can see that.
but yeah. So he's a really sad miss in that, But Alan Alan Ross has stepped in, and Alan's a great guitar player. Doesn't want to play guitar in Tysondog. Plays guitar with his dad in Blitzkrieg, and he's got a fabulous set of pipes on him as well. So I'm
Awesome.
I'm quite looking forward to making a new record with Alan singing. So fingers crossed it'll go according to plan. So but as I say, that's going to come out on the Danish label, the record company we're signed to, which is um, same sort of label that Tigers of Pantang are on, and Blitzkrieg and that. It's but the live one's going to be coming out on Demolition Records, who's good friends of ours. In fact, it's owned by our ex drummer, Jed Cook, the
Wow,
drum
small world.
the drummer off the first album,
Yeah.
and the brother of Eric Cook, who I mentioned earlier, who was Venom's manager, and he was also in Atomcraft.
A
So
tight
to
network.
so to say, yeah, the northeast of England was great in the 80s. You could find a drummer, or a guitarist, or a bass player on every street corner. So,
Yeah.
and the good thing about we all still get on really well till this day, in that.
That's really awesome, man, and it's really cool to hear. And I'm really, really excited for this. Any Tysondog fan is going to love this live album, and I
Yeah.
love the history of the band. I'm curious about. I believe the band was it Or Christ? Am I saying that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it was it was called Orchrist, but
Or
when you went
Christ?
Orchrist, but then when we looked into it, it was a case of you do realize this is Christ,
Yeah.
but it was
Yeah.
it it was Alan Hunter's band, our original second guitarist, and he was the original voice on Eat the Rich, the first single, and Alan was supporting Blitzkrieg at a gig in Newcastle. And that's the first time. And when I seen Brian Ross on stage, I was like, this guy's just unbelievable. His voice, and you can you can tell why. And he'll admit it to this day. James Hetfield has sort of took on Brian Ross's sort of vocal technique,
Right.
and obviously changed it, made it a bit more. But Brian's still got a great set of lungs in that. But yeah, Chris was supporting Blitzkrieg, and then basically the bass player left, so I got in, and then the guitarist left, and then Paul got in, and then we just said this name's shit. So
Yeah. And it's like a different band at that point.
it wasn't our band, so Tysondog was born out of the ashes of a band called Orchrist, but
Yeah.
we,
And
we've
the 83 demo. Was
Yeah.
that made for Neat Records? Like,
No, no, we
oh,
were we 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 couldn't get. There was a guy called Russ Conway who was the A&R man, and he was. I don't know if you know the story, but he's the one who famously turned Metallica down for
yeah.
neat records. So they wouldn't release Kill 'Em All. That's freaking great. But he was signing all these bands. He was signing Artillery from Denmark, and he was signing Jaguar from Bristol,
Great bands, yeah.
and and we bumped into him one night, and it was literally, we had this demo, and we're saying, listen, we're on your doorstep. You won't even come and see the band, and we give him the demo tape, and then it went from there. He liked what he heard. It was just a live album recorded at a club in Newcastle. So it's
You brought the live
that's
show to him, pretty
we
much.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I'll use that. I'll use that. But that is he just wouldn't come and see us, and he was like, oh no, I'm flying off to America, and I'm going off, and he was, but if you listen to other bands who talk about Neat Records, and it's so true, because they portrayed this image that they were a big company. You know what I mean? They'd have like two people in the office. I was watching an interview lately. I think it might either been Tony Bray or John Gallagher, and it was so true. It'd literally be this little place above an amusement arcade, sort of fruit machines and everything like that, in this high street in an industrial town in Newcastle, and there'd be one woman picking up the phone, and then, right, I'll pass you through, and it could be someone from America. I go, right, I'll pass you through to Mr. Woods, and he'd be sat next to her. So I hand the phone, I go, hello, David Woods. But it was just one massive, like, I wouldn't say con, but he just, the guy, to be fair, we hated him at times, because at times we couldn't get money out of him, and he was always bullshitting us. But he was a fantastic businessman. Do you know what I mean? He done really well. But it was fun. It was very fun times in that. We all had a laugh. All Tiger Pantang, Raven, Avenger, Atom Craft, Blitzkrieg, Satan. We used to go out drinking and having a laugh. And there's a bar still there in Newcastle called Trillions, and it literally was, one side was musicians, and the other side was sort of the the general public, so to speak. But there was more musicians. But it was great times. Great times, I say.
It's
Everyone.
like the genres version of like the Rainbow in LA
Yeah, I
almost.
can imagine it. Yeah, I can imagine everyone. Well, I remember going into Trillions, and Jess Cox had just left Tigers of Pantang, and just come up and says, Kev, are you busy? Are you a bass player? And I was like, yeah, okay. Right. Our bass player, Dave Donaldson's just left to join the proper Tigers of Pantang, but I've got a new band called Tiger Tiger. Will you come and join me? So I ended up doing some work with Tiger Tiger, so but it was crazy.
So I just want to touch on, Beware the Dog, a very legendary cult album. And, I think it's fantastic. Such a
Oh,
great
thank
record
you.
from the band. So you were talking about Neat Records. I
Yeah.
assume the budget on that record, wasn't a truckload of money.
No,
Um,
I think it was Conrad's first. Um, I think he'd done a bit of work producing Venom albums, um, but he wanted to obviously have a go with us, and he'd worked at Neat Records as sort of T-boy and runner, and yeah, he was great. He was great to work with, and the input was brilliant. The only thing which was the drum sound. We started. Jed, the drummer, was meddling with electronic drums mixed with acoustic drums, and it didn't quite work, you know. But I think it. Yeah, I appreciate what you say there. I think it still stands up, and to tell you the truth, we still play probably half the album live now. Them some of them songs we still play Hammerhead, Painted Heroes, Dog Soldiers. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Like, and um, it just needs to be re-released. We're having discussions with certain companies because I've literally only got a handful of CDs left from the last time it was redone. Unfortunate thing about it is Sony BMG own the rights to it now,
And that's what I was
and
going to ask because it's not on streaming. It's,
yeah,
I've only listened to it on YouTube.
yeah, I
Um,
know.
yeah, so is there any like hope to get those rights back, or is that?
The Brazilians have just done it. There's I think Rock Brigade in Brazil have just re-released it. They released a package of the two albums, Crimes of Insanity and Beware the Dog. But at the moment, we are in discussions to try and get it released. So we're just waiting to see. Funny enough, Jess Cox is uh, he wheels and deals with music albums and signed product and things. That's how he makes his money now. And I had a message off him just the other week asking if I had any more Beware the Dog CDs left and that. And I said, I literally must have about half a dozen. And then that's it. And that. So yeah, I think there will be a possibility to get it re-released. But it's nice of you to say that. I don't think it's sort of it got a release in Canada, but I don't think it ever was released in the States. I don't think it
Nope.
ever got a release out there. I think it was on Banzai in Canada. I think which was a division of Polydor. I think they had it and in South America as well. So, but
Yeah, and it's hard to track what's an official release, what's like a bootleg, because there's
yeah,
so
right,
many distributors, and it's like
yeah,
to get like a full release by the band, you have
yeah,
a whole new generation of fans who love
yeah,
the band's material. It'd be great to see, and we're excited to get this new album as well because as much as I love that, to get some more material is very exciting, and
I
everything you're saying
appreciate
about it. It's
it.
really great. I thought Midnight was a fantastic record. Um,
Yeah, that
now,
was
yeah,
produced by we got a really good producer in on that one who's just been working with Tony Martin, the Black Sabbath singer,
yeah.
and he did it again. I think it was because of lockdown. He was struggling for work, and um, I spoke to Steve Grimmett sadly just before, well, not long before Steve had died. I mean, we were very good friends with Steve, and Steve had said, "Oh, I've done an album with this guy, and he's a really good producer and that, and I've asked him to do it, and he'd done a phenomenal deal. We couldn't afford him now on the next one. He's fees will have went up through the roof and that. So
Well, it
uh,
sounds amazing. Like it
we
shows.
we did ask him to do the live album, but then when Jed from Demolition mentioned Jeff Dunn would do it, then I thought I'd rather Jeff done it, and he's kept it more true. But yeah, Midnight, we're really pleased with that album. I must admit, like production on it's pretty good. But again, we got people who weren't happy because it was too modern. It's like, do you
You
know
can't
what I mean?
please everybody,
I
It's
know
like some
it's
people are so connected to like that. It's not good unless it's shit production, and it sounds like 82. But
That's honestly, the Germans are like that. The Germans are dreadful. We got a terrible response and terrible reviews of certain people in the German press, and it was like, "What do you want us to do? Like, should we not use Pro Tools? Should we go to 3/4 inch tape again and
gotta cut it manually.
cut it with a razor blade and splice it together?" It's like, do you know what I mean? It's fucking
Yeah.
2020 whatever. But yeah, but no, I appreciate that, and I do. I mean, I still do. I've got a huge record collection in their vinyl collection, and I do still like listen to something that is authentic and that. I was just listening to a Tom Petty album the other day, and it's the production's dreadful, but it's so good. Do you know what I mean? It's so basic, the production and the hi hat and the snare, just, but it's like great. So yeah, I don't mind. It's
Well,
uh,
yeah, and Savage, for example,
yeah,
has some of the worst production I've ever heard in my life.
but great
But
songs.
it's great, you know. It's like, yeah.
I
Now,
know.
as much as I don't want to take too much of your time. As much as I like to get in Crimes and
Yeah,
Cry Havoc, great
yeah.
records. I'd love to know, just to wrap up Beware the Dog. Do you remember the exact budget you got for that record, and how do you recall like writing and recording process for that album?
The songs. Paul wrote a lot of the material. A lot of the well, he wrote all the songs. So some of the lyrics were messed about with and changed over the years, but that was just really Paul writing that on the welfare, as you would call it. No money. The budget was just go in and do it as quickly as possible. So
What,
we
you have like
literally,
2 days to record?
we literally just went in and we recorded maybe 2 or 3 songs at a time, just live. So we just played the album. So that was just like bit like the old days, where they'd go in the studio and you go 1, 2, 3, and bang
Yeah.
straight into it. There was no whoa, stop. I'll drop you in just after
Yeah.
this bit. Nowadays,
Yeah.
it's so easy to make an album. Now you can do it in your garden shed. It's just Pro Tools and drop you in, and if you make a
It'd take
mistake, don't
five
worry about it.
months to
Oh
record
yeah,
it. Yeah.
I reckon. I mean, I would say that album was recorded, produced within 10 days, easily within 10 days. We just
Honestly,
went
not
in.
bad.
We just went in, and we were doing about 2 or 3 songs a day in that, and yeah, no, it was really good. Keith Nicol working alongside Conrad, who Keith was a fantastic and is still involved in the industry, fantastic like engineer and that. And as I say, Conrad came up with some great ideas, and even the growls on Demon and things like that were his idea. Can I do this? And it was great. It was fun to work with, and that. So yeah, we were quite pleased with it. But budget wise, there wasn't a massive budget on it or anything like that. We were kids really. So yeah. So.
Yeah, and for Crimes of Insanity, the band gets a little faster, and I feel like the production is way heavier. Was this a conscious decision?
If you check timeline dates and things like that, thrash wasn't even a thing then.
Yeah,
It was we didn't really know of bands like Anthrax, Metallica. We just sort of another band from America and that. I think we'd heard a couple of songs. Oh, these are pretty good, but yeah, I don't know that. But then you look back to Dead Meat, which was on the first single in 1981, 82. It was released, and that was quite punky. So. Paul disagrees with us, but I do think, I mean, I certainly did like a lot of sort of quite heavy, punky type, like Ramones type, Sex Pistols, real sort of 1970s punk type stuff and that. So, yeah, but it just, Crimes and Sanity is still, that's still one of my favorite albums. I really like that. But it didn't go down too well in some elements of the press because it was too different. They thought it was too produced, and we had a better drummer. I mean, I still, as I say, I still work with Jed, and I love Jed. But Rob Walker was the drummer on that, and he was a phenomenal drummer. So he was only a young kid, and he was really good. So the budget was a bit bigger on that. We spent a lot of money on the album cover. Um, Back and forward to London doing promo shoots with a guy called Joe Bangay who worked with Girls' School and Motorhead, and Simon Porter PR who worked with Iron Maiden and people like that, and spent a lot of money on that. So, but and I don't think it sold as well as Beware. So we
great
got
record
dropped.
though.
So we got dropped. I tell her, I think
Did
we.
that end the band?
Yeah, we got we should have played a big festival in Holland, and they wouldn't pay the money for us to go to play the Dynamo Festival in Holland, which went on to become this huge festival.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and they pulled the funding from the band, and we were all skint. We were still only young men, early 20s, and we didn't have the money, so the band just slowly come to a grind and halt, really, and we decided we had to go out and get proper jobs. So
But
yeah,
we're back, and we have a new record on the way, and we have this live compilation that I'm extremely excited about. Do we have a date on that
uh,
live album? Like
certainly
a
before
rough?
Chris, certainly before Christmas. It
Okay,
has to be done, yeah. So I've got a meeting lined up with because I now live in
this year.
Manchester, whereas all the band and the label that's coming out on up in Newcastle. So I'll be up in Newcastle next week after, and I've got to get it finally signed off and that. But the delay was due to covers. The cover, the record label wanted it a bit sort of like with Clutch, with the light coming down as though it was coming down from from heaven, and and Clutch was like I think one of his final words he said, and I put it on Facebook at the time, was like, "Listen, I don't believe in God, the devil, or the Loch Ness monster." So it was all to do with the cover. That's what held it up. So different people wanted Jed wanted this cover, the band wanted this cover, but it's ready to go. It's literally everything's been done. John Tucker, who's a fantastic journalist and heavy metal aficionado, has done all the liner notes, and he knows the band fairly well. He used to work for Neat Records back in the 80s. He used to do the Leadweight compilation albums, and he works for Cherry Red Records now, who are a reasonably sized label. So it's ready to go. So definitely before Christmas, and I would say the new album definitely by summer next year.
Very exciting. Well,
Yeah.
I that's hilarious. And, maybe you can just have him be Jesus Christ on the record at that point because that's
or,
ridiculous.
or putting holes into people's bases, or
Yeah.
lying in a coffin, or
Yeah, crucified on the base. Yeah.
clutch on the wall.
Well, Kevin, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me.
Honestly, mate, it's amazing. I love chatting to people about it, and that I can have a tendency to go on and on and on, but it's just been such a blast being involved and still being involved as a 60-odd-year-old man, and that it's sort of I love it. So
Well, I love to see the band still around. Cannot wait to hear the new material and the live stuff.
yeah,
Hopefully, one day you'll come to the States. You
I'd
know,
love I'd love to. We're trying to with Randy Kastner, who's doing a festival up in Detroit. We're trying to get that put to bed for next year, but we'll see what happens.
you
We'll
guys would
work
kick ass.
permits.
Yeah, on
Yeah,
Hell's Heroes. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Hell's Heroes.
yeah. Well, we're working on it. I mean, I'm more than happy to come over as just a tourist, and someone lends us a guitar, and we
Yeah.
go up. Do you know what I mean? But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, invite you to like an open mic or something.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, well, there's a few in Boston, so shoot me a message when you're here.
Yeah, well, I'd love to
But
love to come over. Cheers, Brandon.
awesome. Thank you so much. I've been Brandon, and this has been Disturbing the Priest.
It's death! I've just seen death!